Apologetics is the ability to give a defense for one's position, one's views on a particular, whether it's a religion or even a philosophy. I could possibly say one can offer an apologetic, a defense for one's belief system. And so when we talk about Christian apologetics, typically we're talking about a defense of the Christian faith, why we believe that God exists, why we believe that Jesus is who he claimed to be. What's interesting about Christianity is that Christianity, certainly as I understand it and find in the New Testament, if you read the New Testament, it implores us to do apologetics. 1 Peter 3:15 is a very well-known apologetics verse which talks about Christians being able to give a reason for the hope they have, and that's important. And I think we see this being reflected not just in the commandment but in the lives of the early Christians. We see Paul, for example, in Acts chapter 26, when he's giving his defense, he's on trial in front of the leaders there. He says these things are true and reasonable, and he's speaking about the death and resurrection of Jesus Christ, because they were not done in a corner. We know from 1 Corinthians chapter 15, for example, the famous chapter on the resurrection of Jesus, that there's more than 500 eyewitnesses, and over again you find in the New Testament people talking about that they were eyewitnesses to this event. There's a false view of faith out there that almost sees that people of faith and conviction who don't need to lean upon their intellect or their reason are somehow more pious. It's more pious to have that kind of sort of faith which can just set aside the questions and objections and sort of leap over or transcend those things. And I just think that that's a false view of the Christian faith. I think God has given us ample evidence to prove his existence, to establish his existence. We see this in Romans chapter 1. It says that we can know something about God's attributes from the things that have been made, from creation. And so I think that this also, the reason why apologetics is important is because it helps to fortify the faith of the believers, to help deal with my own questions and doubts as a person, but then also, as we've been commissioned as Christians, to go out and have something reasonable to say to people who don't share our own convictions. We need to be able to persuade people of what we believe in. There's no security then that just because I can say something reasonable and appeal to somebody reasonable and with reason, that they're then going to follow Jesus. One gets into discussions then over the will, morality, questions like that, because we also acknowledge as Christians that people are sinful. And so sometimes people can stare at the evidence and the arguments and just say, no, I don't want Jesus. And it's difficult to try and come to terms with that. But the responsibility of the Christian is to declare the truth. The responsibility of salvation is not in the hands of the apologist. We believe that the Holy Spirit ultimately will convict that person. And so it's a combination. We have this privilege of working in God's kingdom, and a part of the work as believers is that we would do our very best to make a reasonable claim concerning the life of Jesus Christ. And I think that the apologetics is needed. I think the New Testament teaches it, and that's why I'm an apologist.